This is our first ever live stream of Archaeologists in Quarantine. Today I'm joined with Maria, who is a Near Eastern archaeologist. So, Maria, what is Near Eastern archaeology?
The Near East is consisting of a lot of countries, which is Egypt, Iran, Iraq, also Mesopotamia it's called. Then you have Israel, Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and then you have Anatolia. That's what we call the ancient Near East. So today, in geography, you'll probably include more countries in the Near East, for example, Saudi Arabia. But for archaeology, when you study the ancient Near East, those countries are not in it.
I was going to say, what time period are you looking at?
Like, it's different because, like, for me, we started around like the late Paleolithic, Pleistocene. Other places you can start even further back with the first anatomical modern humans. But we started like late Pleistocene and with the Epipaleolithic in the Levant area, Anatolia and also Mesopotamia, with the introduction of agricultural societies.
Is there like a particular area that you focus on?
Yes, so I focus on what is called the pre-pottery Neolithic, which is when agriculture comes around in the Near East. And I've especially looked at the Levant, 12,000 to 8,500 years ago. So yeah, it's pretty old and it's a long period that's divided into sub-periods. You have agriculture and that leads to the first villages actually. So we have so-called mega sites where up to 3,000 people live together for the first time ever. So you have like, instead of this hunter-gatherer living different places, you actually have people settling down. There's a lot of things happening in that period. I could talk about it forever. So
because we're talking about agriculture, which is quite interesting because it's so important, and I don't think people even realize how important it can be. Because like for us, for me especially, it gives us an insight into how people were living in those areas at certain times. Yeah. Especially like the stuff that we can find. So what type of artifacts are you finding?
Well, we're finding, of course, there's loads and loads of lithics, and you find sickle blades where you can see that it's been used multiple times for cutting down what do you call crops? Sorry. Then you find silos with grains in it, of course, because if you're gonna go out and get your grains, you need a place to keep them. There's some pretty interesting ritualistic objects, and you have very interesting burials. This is like kind of famous, but I'm not sure that a lot of people have heard about it. Maybe you've heard about it from Çatalhöyük in Anatolia, where they remove the skull from the burial. So often they will bury the person under the floor in their house. So they will break up the floor, bury the person underneath it, and then plaster the floor again because they use plaster. And then they will wait until the body is like defleshed. And then they will open up again and take out either the full skull or the crania. And then they will put plaster on it and decorate it. I know there's one of these skulls from Jericho is in the Ashmolean in Oxford that has like shells where the eyes were supposed to be. I love those.
Quite fascinating that they're able to see that.
Those burials are not like, you know, if you have a population about 1,500, 2,000 people over like centuries, you would expect there to be lots of burials, but there's not. So these under the house, under the floor burials are not for everyone, or not everyone is buried that way. And there's not really cemeteries. Like there's one ritual site, it's called Kafat HaHodesh, which is in Israel, where you find like different types of burials that seems different from other sites. So it's like ritual cemetery thing. But so there's a lot of people missing from this period actually. And it's quite interesting because sometimes you will find a lot of these skulls together So in Jericho, which is Palestine, they found that was Catherine Canyon. Uh, they excavated these houses and stuff, and then they found like a skull cache where there's just like skulls placed on the floor. And you're like, why do you have skulls on the floor? There's a lot of like headless burials, and you won't necessarily find the skulls at any point. So you'll just like dig up a person and there's no head. It's kind of weird.
I wonder how it would have been for the archaeologists who first discovered them, because you know, especially for the first few, and then you start to see a pattern, and you start to understand, hey, there is a link here, something's going on.
Yeah, and also because it happens in the whole region, so you have it like all like you have it south, and then you also have it in Anatolia. So it's not like it's large, a large region, many thousands of kilometers, where you just have like the same thing going on, which is quite interesting that it's so spread.
So I remember seeing something on your feed. I think it's more to do with burials. Would you say your research focuses on that as well, in the sense of?
Oh yeah, definitely. My research is human remains and pre-pottery Neolithic and children. So at the moment, I'm writing up my master's thesis, which is difficult in pandemic times. I'm creating basically a metadatabase where I collect data from pre-pottery Neolithic sites of child burials. It's for the whole Near East, a database, and analyze if there's similarities, dissimilarities between how infants and children were buried, because there's not a lot of work done on this. It's very interesting to sit, like I'm looking at a lot of sites, and there's not a lot of information necessarily on children, because you have the old sites, or the sites that was excavated many years ago, and back then the opinion was that children didn't really matter, so you would just kind of not register very well, so you wouldn't register like position or placement or anything. You would just like write child, and that was it. So that's the difficult thing right now, is to like figure out like how to collect the data when it's not there kind of. And a lot of those people who excavated, they're dead now, so I can't just write an email, hey, do you have extra information on this? So
how is it being an archaeologist in quarantine? How has it affected you? Because obviously field school.
As a student, it has, because we're on full lockdown, or not full, but we've been on lockdown in Denmark for a while now. I think it's like quarantine day 42 here. In the middle of March, they were like, okay, we're going to shut down university. A lot of my material and sources are at the library, because there's a lot of books you're not allowed to take out of the library. So that's the difficult thing for me right now, is writing my thesis without my material, basically.
You have collaborated with Save Cultural Heritage Group for a 6-week online course. Could you give us a little sneak peek into what people can expect?
So it's, as you said, 6 weeks, and it's about Near Eastern archaeology, and it's for all people. Just give like a good introduction to the Near East. I've uploaded so far a lecture on the history of the archaeology in the Near East, because that's kind of important, I think, to know the history of it. So next up will be the early Holocene period in Egypt.
I think it's really awesome what they're doing by having it free. So important right now for more people to have the opportunity to learn about archaeology from archaeologists who want to explain it for, you know, to everyone, not just in the realms of academia. I think this is really great. So I'm really excited. I will be doing the course as well. Anyone has any questions about Near Eastern archaeology, you can annoy Maria on Instagram. Thank you so much, guys, and we'll see you all next time. So thank you. Cheerio.